from my motorhome, currently parked in Heilbronn, Germany. A live chat and it sort of came out the wrong way, so I was sort of like this at one side. I've got my computer open as well at the same time this time, just to check that things are working. And as I had to hit the I had to hit the button to see what was going on with it. So today, the 27th of January, is Holocaust Memorial Day. Now, being a Friday, I normally put up a documentary type thing, and I see everything's coming out all right because I've got my computer open in front of me. Today being a Friday, I usually do a documentary type thing, but I thought this was more important. And I think also it's worth talking about where the idea of Holocaust Memorial Day comes from. In fact, this was a decision that was made in 2005. So the first Holocaust Memorial Day as such was in 2006. Having said that, picked Yom HaShoah Day, depending on the year. It's in April or the beginning of May, depends, because the calendar is slightly different. So it's one way of commemorating the people who were murdered by the Nazis during the Second World War. But I think it's also part of what we should think of as other genocides. I mean, the genocides have continued to happen, and some of them have been even more ferocious, such as, of course, what happened in Rwanda only 28 years. Which I think it needs to be recalled. Indeed, we have the attempted genocides committed by Stalin and by the Kremlin. And we see a part of that is continuing today in the war, which is going on 1,500 kilometers from where I'm sitting right now. Indeed, much closer to where I'll be sitting in a couple of weeks' time. So I think that is something which is worth bearing in mind. Of course, in the case of the Nazi Holocaust, there's one slight difference. Everything else, it was done in an industrial type manner, which other genocides weren't done in this way. And it was done in such a way as to gradually, by small steps, not only prepare the perpetrators and the perpetrator nation bystanders for the with the transport and the logistics actually came to do it. And that is January, chosen deliberately as the date in which Auschwitz was liberated by the Red Army. I went to Auschwitz twice on this day. The first time was in Poland, on an overnight train, and that was the first time. And the second time was 10 years later in 2005, when I traveled from Warsaw. And in my opinion, in the who was actually there, in the first time we had all the world leaders, and as far as the 2005 commemoration was held, again, once you had all the world leaders, a lot of security, and next to no visitors. Not really surprised there was next to no visitors. It was freezing cold. Indeed, on that day I thought, that's it, this is the very last time I do something like this, because I thought what I do from a point of view historical research, there's nothing to be gained by coming to something like this unless I can actually meet people who were there. In fact, actually in 2005 there was an interview done by German television, and I think I actually set that one up for them, but there wasn't that many people who could actually add anything to it. I did complain a lot about sitting in the cold, but later when I read what Deborah Lipstadt wrote about how cold it was for her, I thought, then I really felt, because the dignitaries all had to sit down, at least those of us who, the riffraff, we could actually walk around and keep ourselves warm. In the southern Poland, it does get a bit nippy in the winter. Now, is it right to use the liberation of Auschwitz as the day that the Holocaust is remembered. And if it had been me who made the decision, I think I'd have gone for a different date. Maybe the date the gassing started in Itaun on Adnerim. So like you're looking at the 7th or 8th of December. Or alternatively, maybe it's the date in which the first mass shootings took place in the invasion of the Soviet Union. So that was 3 days after 25th of June 1941. Perhaps we could even use the date 12th of December when Hitler clearly told his Gauleiters and other top Nazi officials that the Nazis were going ahead with this program of murdering all the Jews in Europe. A rather ridiculous conspiracy theory based on hundreds of years of conspiracy theories. And I think if anything is worth remembering of this, that there are victims to conspiracy theories, and it's not just a bit of a laugh as some people may think, but these conspiracy theories, and there are one or two people who make a great deal of money out of them, but the overwhelming bulk people who may believe in them will go along with them because they're brain dead. But there are victims, and that is something which is forgotten, and that is something I think people ought to try to remember. If there's any lesson from this Holocaust Day, it's that. It's where these brain dead conspiracist hate theories come from. This is what the result is. I think that Hitler's entire aim in coming to power and doing what he did was to kill off the Jews of Europe. When he started to be so anti-Semitic is totally unclear. We don't know. People who knew him as when he was in his youth said he didn't make anti-Semitic comments, and indeed people who were with him, even in the army, when he was in his mid-20s, they said they didn't hear him make anti-Semitic comments. The person who recommended him for the Iron Cross was a Jewish officer. So it's all rather odd that maybe the greatest racist, the greatest anti-Semite in history was somebody who, when he was in Vienna, actually had a little business of such with a Jewish person. Most of his clients were Jewish, and he didn't show these anti-Semitic this hatred. So where he picked it up from is totally unclear. We don't know. So maybe it was a result of the armistice in 1918. He wanted to blame somebody, so he blamed a Jew. By the time you read Mein Kampf, this is pretty anti-Semitic. If anybody has read it, I read it actually years ago. And the first thing we see with Hitler was a letter that he wrote on behalf of the Reichswehr, explaining why there was there needed to be an anti-Semitic policy. That goes to slightly after the First World War, so I'll have to do one day a video on that. I think, to return to Auschwitz, that a lot of the focus being on Auschwitz, I mean, it's understandable. If we're looking at approximately 6 million Jews being killed in the Holocaust, and Auschwitz was probably around 1 million or 900,000 of these people. What's often forgotten in this gradual process that I mentioned earlier is that the suffering that took place during this gradual process, whether it be the ghettoization, the amount of people who died from starvation and starvation-related illnesses, this is often forgotten. These people who were allowed to die in the ghettos. I mean, from the Warsaw Ghetto, we have very clear evidence in the form of what doctors who were there wrote. And this, I think, is often just totally, completely forgotten. The suffering of people in the ghettos and other places as well, such as Łódź, Again, I mean, in Łódź, perhaps the starvation wasn't as great because in Łódź they operated a different system where all food was centralized and then it was parceled out to individuals, and it was usually done on how much work they were actually doing. The suffering in other places where we see the people who had all their possessions taken off them and then maybe dumped in some ghetto somewhere, and it's up to the Jewish self-help organizations to actually organize something for them. I think that part of the point of view of this is to make sure that when the victims actually went away, they were taken away, that they went they didn't fight back, and often this is said that, well, they didn't fight back. Well, some people did fight back, but after years of starvation, of sickness, of usually pointless hard labor, they clearly felt that there was no reason to fight back. Not only that, they were often amongst hostile populations, populations who had it bred into them for hundreds of years that the Jews had killed Christ or whatever. And this also, they didn't know who they could talk to and who they could trust. And this is another feature. Jews were often marked by the fact that if they did speak the local language, which often they didn't, but if they did, then it often had pronounced accents or dialects. Not enough physically, they looked different, and so they could be recognized. And even if they couldn't be recognized, there were so many ways, such as getting them to say Catholic or Orthodox prayers, and which, unless they'd studied them, would have been somewhat difficult for people. So it was things like this with religion. So when we so anyway, so my opinion, Holocaust Memorial Day is to remember what stands behind it, with racism, hatred, and of course conspiracies, and those who benefit from those conspiracies. And that is the thing which I think we need to remember. And if there's any point in history, it is to learn the lessons of the past so that they can be applied to the future, to see what has happened in the past, and to then try to avert those things happening again. As we see in the current war, a couple of thousand kilometers from where I'm sitting right now, it's clear that many people have not learned that the lesson of appeasing Nazis. The only lesson they understand is to stand up to them. Having said that, at least in this case, the Western powers are supporting those who are fighting against the modern day Nazis, unlike the situation which existed until September 1939. So I hope you found that of interest. I was going to hello Ian, and so Ian says, wondering why so much material related to the Holocaust was on his feed today. Yes, that's the reason why. It is because it is Holocaust Memorial Day, and it's I had uploaded something about some German resistance, but that'll come a bit later. There is another thing, actually, another anniversary though, in 3 days' time, and this one I wanted to do a very long study of, because I think it's really important. It is the 90th anniversary of Hitler coming to power, and so the 30th of January. Now, I often use the word seizure of power in my videos, but Hitler didn't seize power. I'm using this in a way, often the Nazi term was revolution. It wasn't a revolution. They were given power. They were handed it on a platter, and it just came to them. It was given, and it was given by the the conservative right, the force of reaction people, and this admittedly, it needs to be pointed out that the Nazis and communists between them had something just under 50% of the entire vote in the elections of the two elections of 1932. So that's part explanation. But anyway, I will look at that. I think I'll do a live on the 30th or the 29th to actually talk about it. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you found that of interest, and all the best from me in Heilbronn, Germany. Oh, there's another little point here. There was a place I was going to go to called Mösingen, where on the 30th of January 1933 there was a strike, and it's the only place in Germany where a strike took place. Mösingen is to the south of Tübingen, and last week I was in Stuttgart, so I thought I'd go there for the strike. But as it turned out, I had to think of the day job, and so that's why I'm here right now. So I wasn't going to Mösingen for the 90th anniversary, but that in it also is something which deserves commemoration. Those brave people who stood up against Hitler in January 1933 here in Germany. Thanks for watching. All the best from me, and bye for now.